Lucy had always believed that the woods were, in the end, a place governed by natural order. Predator and prey, the cyclical decay and rebirth that shaped every tree, every blade of grass, every fleeting animal in her park. She did not consider herself superstitious. Her childhood had been shaped by reason, the discipline of her scientist parents, long afternoons in the back of lecture halls with her homework as complicated hypotheses were explained overhead. As a ranger, she liked that sense of structure. The patrol logs, the checklists, the regular sweep of familiar trails. Strange rumors flickered among her colleagues, of course. Ghostly figures in storm-soaked cabins, shadowy shapes pacing the tree line at dusk. A voice whispered down the two-way radio that never announced its name. Lucy honored these stories with a polite nod, a half smile, and a change of topic. She was assigned to the eastern ridge that autumn, a remote arc of land heavy with pine and a persistent, resinous mist. Assignments had come in late that Thursday, when the first snows lay in packets beneath the trees, but the air itself stayed unseasonably warm. Lucy's shift began at dawn. She locked the station, unfolded her map, tucked her phone into the sleeve pocket of her jacket, and started toward a series of switchbacks that brought her above the fog line. The ridge was empty. The only company in those hours, the crows, their silhouettes sharp against the gray, and her own steady breath. It was only when she rounded a hairpin bend, the sun just splitting the valley in pale light, that Lucy noticed the footprints. Clear, distinct, and recent, printed in the powder-dusted soil along the edge of the path. Another ranger must have come this way before her. She paused, checked her watch, glanced back at the map. No other shift had been assigned her sector. Still, the print was unmistakably Park Service. The tread, the size, the narrow curve at the heel prescribed by standard issue boots. She continued, her curiosity sharpening. Half a mile ahead, Lucy saw a man on the path. Broad-shouldered, wearing the deep olive jacket, the pale-brimmed hat, even the rectangular Park Service badge clipped to his chest. He faced away, and for a moment she felt relief at having unspoken company in these lonely woods. When she called out a greeting, the man's posture stiffened, but he did not turn. Instead, he stepped to the side, let her pass, and nodded, his gaze fixed on the shadowy tangle of spruce beside the trail. She tried to speak, to exchange the small talk that usually passed between colleagues, but her words died as a chill swept over her. She registered something odd about him. The jacket seemed too worn for a current ranger, almost threadbare, and his badge was strangely dull, as if it had been handled for years longer than any she had seen. The letters were the style of a generation before, a serif font, not the blocky print now in use. Lucy marched on. She descended into a creek basin and radioed in, the static loud between her notes. Eastern Ridge, Lucy. Met up with another on the same assignment. Badge number unclear. Confirm, please. The reply from dispatch was brisk. Lucy, there is no one else logged for your sector. Confirm location. Did you see a visitor? Lucy replied, but dispatch simply repeated that she was alone. She wondered if a maintenance crew member had been reassigned without her knowledge, or if a supervisor had decided to do a spot check. The rest of her loop passed uneventfully, though she could not shake the feeling that she was being observed. The forest felt thicker, denser, like a pressure in the air built behind her back. Every so often, she would glimpse movement along her periphery, a glimmer of tan fabric or the suggestion of a broad hat. But when she turned, there was nothing. The wind died, and a rare sense of being unwelcome prickled up her skin. By noon, she returned to the trailhead, her shift finished, and entered the ranger station to log her patrol. The headquarters was as silent as she had left it. She scribbled her notes in the binder and set her radio down. Before leaving, she checked the security monitor, a habit she had developed after a string of minor vandalism cases the summer prior. The low-res feed flickered. On the screen, Lucy saw herself entering alone, her movements brisk and self-contained. But in the corner of the frame, there was a shadow, the edge of another figure caught between two slats of blinds, hat brim low, jacket indistinct. She rewound. Again, she entered solo. The shadow followed, its movements subtle, as though the camera barely registered its presence. A cold unease bloomed in her chest. Lucy double-checked the station records for any badge or log entry that might explain the man she had seen. Nothing matched. The next day, Lucy approached her supervisor, punctuating every word with the precision of someone trained to weigh evidence carefully. "I need to file a report," she started. "There was a man on my patrol route. Ranger uniform, not in the roster. Security camera captured something strange." The supervisor arched an eyebrow. "Are you sure you are not overtired? Not a volunteer or off-duty staff? We have confirmation you were scheduled solo." Lucy pushed the footage across the desk. The supervisor watched, silent for a moment, then nodded, saying only, "Probably a visitor caught by the cameras at the wrong angle." Case closed. That night, Lucy slept poorly. She dreamed of mist rolling down the ridge, of footsteps that echo in places where sound should not carry. When she woke, she found muddy prints across the welcome mat inside her apartment. She did not remember tracking in any mud. 2 days later, she returned to the same ridge for her scheduled patrol. The path was deserted again, but the sensation of pressure, of a presence just beyond sight, was stronger than before. At a fork in the trail, she examined the dust. For more prints, there were none. The woods were quieter than usual. Even the crows seemed to have abandoned the ridge. Lucy walked faster, heart pounding, glancing over her shoulder every few minutes. Midway through the loop, her radio came to life, the static warbling. The voice that spoke was rough but familiar, a clipped cadence she had not heard on park radio before. "You are off your route, Lucy." She froze. Who is this? The transmission was followed by a low laugh, then silence. She tried to call it in, but there was only a return of static, no response from dispatch. She sped up, nerves jangling, carefully observing her surroundings. At a sharp turn, she caught sight of a figure standing in the shade among the trees. Hat low, jacket sleeves long, every detail aligned with the man she had seen 2 days before. He did not move or call out. His hands hung at his sides, unmoving and oddly rigid. Even from a distance, Lucy could see that his face was both familiar and wrong. A waxy, unnatural pallor, eyes lacking all light. Lucy forced herself to maintain composure, continuing rigidly past without breaking into a run. Behind her, the forest seemed to swallow all sound. She did not see him again, but the sense of being watched never left her. At the station, Lucy checked the logs. A list of all official badges, uniforms, staff. There were several names she recognized, and one she did not. A slip of yellowed paper was pasted into a folder at the back. Harrison R., deceased 1978, retired badge, uniform returned. Deceased, yet assigned to that very sector as primary ranger over 40 years ago. Lucy hesitated before speaking with a senior ranger. Have you ever felt you are not alone on a patrol, even if the logs say otherwise? The older woman nodded in a way that suggested she understood more than she would admit aloud. Some parts of the park, you do your job and keep your questions to yourself, the senior ranger responded. We do not talk about the ridge anymore. Not since the accident. Sometimes you see a ranger who is not really there. He is not supposed to be here, but neither are we. And the balance holds as long as no one tries to find out more. The next days, Lucy found her sleep fitful, her heart responding to any unusual sound in the night. Reports from hikers trickled in, always the same. A man in uniform, never quite close enough to recognize, silently watching. Some described being lost, only to have the stranger guide them back to the path without a word. Others spoke of inexplicable chills, of voices calling their name, always from the deeper trees. Then, after a week with no further incidents, Lucy received a call at home from a blocked number. The voice at the other end was hollow. "Return the badge," it said, unblinking, and then hung up. Lucy spent hours searching her belongings, but she never found any misplaced ranger badge. A month passed before Lucy dared return to the ridge. Official duties called her elsewhere, and she was privately grateful for the change. But stories continued. Rangers exchanged uneasy glances at meetings. A new hire, assigned to the Eastern Ridge, came back shaken after an encounter she would not describe. One evening, a power outage left the station unlit. Lucy, charged with locking up the records, noticed that the folder with the name Harrison R. was missing from its shelf. In its place was a folded, decades-old park bulletin. Inscribed at the bottom was an unfamiliar hand. "The woods remember. We do too." Lucy requested a transfer after that. When the paperwork went through, she left behind her badge, her uniform, and the station keys on her supervisor's desk. On her drive out of the park for the last time, she saw in the rearview mirror a figure at the edge of the parking lot. Broad-shouldered, hat low, jacket catching the light in a way she recognized. He raised a hand in what could have been a wave or a warning, then faded into the dusk. Her former colleagues sometimes spoke of her afterward. Lucy was a model ranger, one of them would say. She did everything by the book, until she saw something the book did not cover. That winter, the Eastern Ridge closed temporarily due to storm damage. The patrols were reassigned and the logs kept with even greater care. But those who entered the woods with histories older than their memories knew that somewhere, just out of sight, walked a ranger who never stepped off his route, who watched over the living and the lost, who would forever hold the title of the one who was not there. Lucy did not visit the park again. She kept her distance, building a life away from the forests that had once felt so rational. At times, on nights when mist gathered along the road outside her window, she would hear the low crackle of a radio, or the faint, measured tread of boots on gravel. She would wake and find nothing there, but she would never quite lose the feeling that someone was, somewhere, keeping her in sight, ensuring the balance remained. She never spoke of those final months with friends or family. When asked why she left the service, she would say only that some mysteries in the forest are not meant to be solved. And if, on certain fog-bound mornings, the old park radio she kept as a memento sprang to life with static and a clipped, unfamiliar voice, she would listen in silence, heart steady, until the transmission fell quiet once more.